Hi guys, and I'm Critic here, and today we're going to review and talk about Crash Twinsanity, and we're going to see one of my favorite Crash games still below. And this game is considered to be by many Crash fans to be one of the best Crash games. So yes guys, I do like Crash Twinsanity, and this is one of my favorite Crash games out there. This game is really one of the good Crash games on the PS2, and it's one of the good Crash games on the PS2, and it's one of the more fun Crash games on the PS2. So guys, let's take a look at Crash Twinsanity, and let's see if this game still holds up, and let's see if Crash Twinsanity is still a worthwhile game, and let's find out and let's see for ourselves. I gotta say, this is one of the most funniest Crash games out there, and this game is funny as hell. This game is the first Crash game with an open world, and for a Crash game, it's interesting and cool to see a open world in a Crash game, and cool to see a open world to explore in a Crash game, which that is actually pretty nice, and it is very cool to see here for the first time, really, when you think about it. And the game opens up after the Wrath of Cortex, and the game takes place after the Wrath of Cortex. I know this because the game literally opens up with Cortex and Uka Uka in that ice cube frozen, iceberg frozen, and you see Cortex and Uka Uka frozen in the iceberg. But later, we're here to assume that Cortex and Uka Uka are now mostly unfrozen by the ice by the sun, because you see the sun, and Cortex and Uka Uka are now unfrozen by the ice by the sun, and because you see the sun. So the story of the game starts where Coco is having fun and chasing a butterfly, and so she is having fun and chasing a butterfly, and then all of a sudden Cortex zaps and freezes Coco, and then all of a sudden Coco zaps and freezes Coco. So the story of the game starts and then later we see Crash and Cortex, and where Cortex wears Coco's clothes, and wait a minute, are we going to assume that Cortex literally took the clothes off of Coco? And did Cortex actually stole Coco's clothes? And okay, I don't want to know what he did to Coco. I don't want to know what Coco looks like now. I don't want to know. And then later we see Crash and Cortex, and where Cortex wears Coco's clothes. And after Cortex took off his clothes of Coco, and took off his disguise, Cortex lures Crash into a trap, and where we see all the villain cameos, and Cortex has literally all the villains here in a cameo. And Cortex literally has all the villains here in cameos, and to get Crash. And it's cool to see the villains in a cameo. And it's awesome to see all the villains in a cameo in here. And it's cool to see all the villains. And it's awesome to see all the villains in a cameo here. And to get Crash. And then Cortex reveals his Crash robot, an engine controlling it. And Cortex reveals his Crash robot and an engine controlling it. And Crash fights Cortex and then beats him and stops and destroys his Crash robot and engine. And Crash fights Cortex and then beats him and stops and destroys his Crash robot and engine. And then Crash collides with Cortex, and Crash and Cortex both duke it out. And then this is where in the game you get to control. And then the first boss battle is called Mecha Bandicoot, where Crash fights a robot version of himself called Mecha Bandicoot. Then Crash rides the Mecha Bandicoot to fight the evil twins, and fights Engine and Cortex. So you first fight Mecha Bandicoot, and then Crash fights a Mecha Bandicoot. And then Crash fights Mecha Bandicoot, and then you fight Mecha Bandicoot. Then you fight the first boss battle. It's pretty feisty. You have to dodge after he shoots his fireball at you. And then you have to dodge, then you have to use Mecha Bandicoot to fight the evil twins, and then you have to dodge and play the mech. It's actually pretty cool to fight Mecha Bandicoot. Crash fights Mecha Bandicoot. Cortex fights Cortex and Engine. So you first fight Cortex as the first boss battle, then you fight Mecha Bandicoot, which is pretty cool. Then he shoots his fire at you, and then you actually have to fight. It's actually pretty cool. It's actually kind of my favorite. It's actually a really fun, cool boss fight, really. I kind of like the character of just Mecha Bandicoot, I'm not gonna lie. And it's kind of like the character Mecha Bandicoot, okay? I'm not gonna lie. I actually really like it. So you fight Mecha Bandicoot as the first boss battle. I'm not gonna lie, it's a pretty fun boss battle. He fire at you, and he just looks cool and awesome. I like playing as him. So Crash fights his first boss battle, Mecha Bandicoot, and then Crash fights Cortex and Engine. He shoots his laser, you gotta stop his, you gotta punch and fight him, shoots his laser, fight. I mean, it's like the design of Mecha Bandicoot. He has a fireball, he shoots his flamethrower, he shoots his fireball, he shoots his flamethrower at you. He has a chainsaw, and it's a pretty cool boss. It's a pretty cool character overall. And I like how later in the game where you play Mecha Bandicoot to fight the evil twins. So you play as Mecha Bandicoot to fight the evil twins. That's what I really like. It's a pretty cool weaponry, pretty cool character to play. I like how you play as Mecha. I like how I like how you play as Mecha Bandicoot later in the game, in the finale of the game to fight the evils. In the finale of the game to fight the evil twins, you have to use your chainsaw to cut them. It's pretty cool, nice boss battle. I really like it. It's a nice boss, but I really like it. It's really fun. It's really cool. I really like it. And yeah, it's actually a cool looking design kind of character to play, really, design. I don't know, he's just a cool looking character. You get to start controlling both characters, and you get to play both characters. And so then after Crash and Cortex stopped fighting and found their crystals, and they were fighting over crystals, and after they were fighting over crystals, they then stumble onto the evil twins, which are birds from another universe. And the evil twins want to take over their world, and Crash and Cortex both have to team up and stop them. And Crash and Cortex both have to team up and stop them, and stop the evil twins, and stop the evil twins' birds. So the gameplay is a cool idea, and a nice concept. And you do play as Crash, and you don't play as just Crash, and you have to play as Cortex sometimes. And when you play as Cortex, it is awesome and cool to play him. And the gameplay is a cool idea and a nice concept, and when you play as Cortex, it is awesome and cool. The gameplay is where you both have playing Crash and Cortex, and you have to take turns playing as Crash and Cortex. And when you play as Crash and Cortex, you have to work as a team. The game has many levels and bosses, and you have to go fight the ants and fight their ant army. And you have to travel through worlds like the areas in the world, and the areas in places known in Crash games. And the bosses are fun, and the bosses are new and old characters, and characters returning, and bosses have old characters and new faces, and the bosses have old characters returning and new faces to fight up against Crash. And the bosses are fun and hard to fight, and the worlds are great, and the worlds you got are fun. And then you go to the mine levels, and the Tiki Tribe levels, and the Madam School level, and the ice levels, and the jungle level, and the space level, and the boat ship level, and the pipeline stream level, and the space level, and the boat ship level, and the pipeline stream level. And the levels are fun and entertaining, and they're enjoyable and nice, and the levels are good, and the levels are great, and the levels are very fascinating and unique to play them overall as a whole. The gameplay, you actually have to play as Cortex and Crash. Like, you actually shift sides, and you actually take turns playing both of them. The gameplay is where you actually take turns playing as both Cortex and Crash, each use their own ability. So this game, the gameplay is unique. Now, what's funny about the gameplay is that, like, Crash uses Cortex as like a punching bag to unlock levels, and there's times even Crash has to even throw Cortex to unlock something. That's the funny part about this game. So that's kind of what makes the gameplay kind of funny. And that's actually what kind of makes the gameplay kind of funny, actually, when you think about it, really. And I gotta say, this is one of the most funniest Crash games I've ever seen. This is the most funniest Crash games I've ever played in my life. I mean, the comedy is so over the top that you'll just laugh. I mean, you'll love it. The comedy is so over the top that you'll just laugh your ass off. Okay, you'll just laugh your ass. It's just so zany. The humor is so over the top that you'll laugh your ass. The humor is so zany that it's game. This game is an open world game, and as an open world game, it's actually the best. It's actually pretty good. And this is actually one of the first and only few Crash open world games, and as a Crash open world game, it's actually pretty great. The gameplay is entertaining and enjoyable. Like, it's fun, it's enjoyable, and like, you'll get used to it. And it's really not that hard. It's not that hard and challenging. It's only hard when it's needed, but it's really not that hard. It's easy enough. There is a lot of obstacles. There's good challenging parts in this game, like a lot of obstacles you have to pass. When the game's challenging, it's challenging. It's a good kind of challenging, and I like it that way. But it's actually a fun ride. The game is a crazy ride, and it's a really fun game. The game is actually quite fun and easy of the gameplay. The gameplay is really simple and good and solid, and the whole game is a fun ride. I mean, the whole game is a crazy ride, and you'll like it. The Crystal Cave Mine level. I do like the Crystal Cave Mine level. This is where you then fight the ants. Fighting the ants are not special, but they're easy. They're easy to beat. You move around in like a ball, and Crash and Cortex both move around like a little ball, and they fight. And you see them fight, but it doesn't last for that long. You have to control both of them. And it doesn't fight that long, and it doesn't last for that long. You control both of them. That's how it is. So that's how it is, and that's what it's like. And you roll down this Crystal Mine Cave, and you play as both Cortex and Crash to take turns and work together. Ant Army, and then after you beat the Ant Army, you're into the next level. This is my favorite part of the level what I like is like the level where like you have to like rescue Cortex, and you have to like, you know, make sure he doesn't get hit by these obstacles. Like, he gets chased by a bear in one level, and he's hit by bees, and and the bear goes away, and he's like, and then, he takes off the bee level, and it's funny and stupid. And I do like the level where you have to rescue Cortex. He gets, chased by a bear, and he gets he gets stung by bees, and you have to make sure he doesn't get hit by these obstacles and stop the obstacles, and you have to prevent these traps on him, and you have to rescue him. You gotta make sure he's safe and okay. Like in the level, Crash has to make sure that Cortex is safe and okay. So eventually the bear goes away, and then he takes off the bees, and Cortex is just stung, and he looks ugly, and it's kind of fun. It's just fun. I love it, and he's stung by bees. He's so bruised, and and it's just funny and stupid. It's really funny and stupid. I love it. I don't know, and that's kind of one of my favorite levels of the game. So you have to go and save Cortex, and you have to make sure he gets hit by these bees, and then make sure he doesn't get hit by the traps. It's pretty nice. It's a pretty cool and fun level. And so Cortex at one time gets stung by bees. He gets hit by a bee jar, and the bee jar gets out of him. But you basically have to you have to basically save him from the traps. You have to play this Crash to prevent him by getting hit by traps, and obstacles, and save him there. Now, the bees get eventually off him. You then have to save him from the tikis, and this is the same, and you actually have to move his Crash to save him from the obstacles and traps, make sure he doesn't get hit, and protect and save him. And then he later eventually you have to save from the tikis, and then, the tikis, and it's interesting. In this level is where Cortex is captured by the Tiki natives and where Crash has to save him. And this is where the Tiki natives, like the head Tiki native, kind of looks like gets poisoned, and then Crash has to save Cortex and all that stuff. And what comes is probably the best music I heard in the level, and it's actually good, and this is actually a fun open world 3D platform level where you have to go through. Comes as a great boss by that I personally. In this level, Cortex is captured by the Tiki natives, and where the head Tiki native looks like he got poisoned. Looks like he actually kind of got poisoned by accident, and where the Tiki natives get revenge on Cortex, and where Crash later has to save Cortex, is on a rescue mission. And what follows is probably the best music I ever heard in a Crash game, performed by these guys, performed by that, and I'll talk about the music later. But I gotta say, it's really great music, really catchy. They use actual mouth tunes. And let me just tell you something. And what follows is a really fun, challenging level where you have to go through obstacles, and traps, and it's a really fun 3D open world 3D platformer, and the platform is great here, and I really like this level. Later, Crash rescues Cortex, and then what follows is actually a massive stone boss, and this is my favorite boss, and this is a really fun boss, and this boss is just great. This is my favorite boss. After Crash rescues Cortex, we then fight this stone boss, and this 3-armed stone boss, and this stone boss, and then after Crash fights the stone boss, which is actually a really fun boss battle, we then cut to this scene. This is actually my favorite boss battle. This is a really fun boss battle, and I really like it. This is actually a really fun boss battle. I really like it. It's entertaining. It's enjoyable. It's challenging, and it gets wild after that. So the evil twins summon this Tiki God boss, fight Crash and Cortex. And the evil twins summon this boss called Tiki God. Literally, the boss battle is literally called Tiki God. So, literally, the character is called Tiki God. So Crash and Cortex both have to fight this Tiki God. Literally, the evil birds summon this Tiki God. So the evil birds summon this Tiki God called, they have to fight this boss battle, and they literally summon this character just called, Tiki God. He's literally just called Tiki God, this character. So you actually have to fight a pretty good, fun boss battle. It's this rock monster Tiki God that actually has 4 arms. And you have to literally throw Cortex at his mouth as he's shooting lasers out of his eyes, and and spawning little mini versions of himself, little mini enemies of himself. It's actually quite an interesting boss battle, I'm not gonna lie. Then you kind of defeat and destroy, and then you beat him. But it's just kind of interesting. But it's actually a really fun and easy boss battle, really. I'm not going to lie. And so then you fight this boss battle called Tiki God. And in the boss battle Tiki God, you actually have to fight this rock monster Tiki God, where Crash and Cortex both have to team up and fight this Tiki God. You then beat and destroy him, but it's actually a fun, easy one. So the evil twins summon a Tiki God, literally just called the character's literally called Tiki God. This boss battle called T-Guy, and then you have to beat him. So Crash and Cortex both have to work together, and so then you kind of stumble upon the evil twins, and the evil twins summon a Tiki God boss, and this boss battle is called the Tiki God. Literally, the boss battle you fight is called Tiki God. So the evil twins summon a Tiki God. Literally, he's called Tiki God. So literally, this character is called Tiki God. So literally, this character is called Tiki God, and Crash and Cortex both have to team up and fight him. So what you do is you actually have to throw Cortex at his mouth after he shoots his lasers and spawn little enemies, little rock enemy, Tiki enemies, little versions of himself, and you have to fight him. And it's actually a fun and easy boss battle. I'm not going to defeat and destroy him. It's actually, so after you defeat and destroy him, it's actually a really fun, nice boss battle. I'm not kidding. So, in this boss battle, you have to move his Crash and throw Cortex at his mouth. Like after he opens his mouth and after he shoots his laser beams at you, he opens his mouth to mouth to do noise. And to spawn his Tiki enemies, and you have to fight the little miniature enemies, versions of himself, Tiki enemies. And you have to throw Cortex at his mouth, and that's how you beat him. Really, and this is actually kind of fun, and this is actually a really easy and fun, interesting boss battle. I have nothing to say. I mean, I just like it how this, rock monster 4 arms, where you have to, go around. You have to move his Crash, and you have to, throw Cortex at him at his mouth, and, so, after he shoots his laser beams out of his eyes, after he literally shoots laser beams out of his eyes, he opens his mouth to do loud. No, after he opens his mouth to do loud noises, does scream noise. So after he opens his mouth to do scream noises, attack, whatever, he summons his little enemies, miniature versions of himself. He summons enemies. And then you have to fight these little mini Tiki enemies of him, and then you have to fight these little mini rock mini Tiki enemies of him. You have to fight these little, and after you beat after you keep throwing Cortex at his mouth, you then beat and destroy. And after you then defeated and destroyed him, so that was easy. And I have nothing much to say. It's a really easy, fun boss battle. And I have nothing much to say. And then after you kind of throw Cortex at his mouth to beat him, you actually defeated and destroyed him. And after you beat him and destroyed him, you actually beat him. He's actually really easy to beat. You just gotta throw Cortex at his mouth and fight off the enemies. And he's actually really easy to beat. You actually have to throw Cortex at his mouth after you beat his little enemies. After you beat these enemies, beat his little enemies and Cortex at his mouth. I mean, he's actually a really easy boss. And after you beat him, I have nothing to say, but it was an interesting boss fight. And then you beat him here, and after you beat him, and then this happened, all that stuff. So there's really nothing much I have to say. It was actually a really fun and interesting boss fight. My favorite level of the game, this is later in the ice level game, is where Crash is literally just for no reason, just staring as an Indian Joe, just staring at the ass of Cortex, and then he kicks him, and then he just slides down, he ski boards him. It's funny, and it's just there's just so much humor, and it's just the funniest Crash game ever, and it's entertaining, and there's a lot of adventure in it, and I like it. This is funny seeing the game. This is later in the ice level of the game. And I just like how he's staring at the ass of Cortex. It's like an Indiana joke. He's looking at his ass. It's looking at his ass, but no, in reality, he kicks him down. And he slides, and he uses him as a ski board. He slides him down, he kind of slides him down, and he uses him as a ski board. And he's kind of riding on him, and it's kind of funny. This is the funniest Crash game I've ever played in my life. It's a good, funny game. It's entertaining. The levels are enjoyable. It's actually a fun adventure, crazy ride when you think about it, and I like it. I'll go on, and so in this level, you have to ride Cortex, and you have to jump and pass through traps and obstacles to get away from the penguin enemies in this ice world. In this level, you have to ride as Cortex, and you have to ride on Cortex, and then you have to pass by objects and obstacles and traps, get by obstacles and traps and challenge. You have to try not to get hit by the penguin enemies and diverge them in the ice level. It's all over the place, but I like it. It's interesting, and it's just a fun level, I guess. So in the ice level, Cortex has penguin enemies. He basically created his own penguin enemies in the level. Cortex actually has penguin enemies he created, but the penguin enemies backfire and betray him. But then the penguin enemies backfire and betray him. And the penguin enemy, he suggested fish, and the penguin enemies don't buy, and they actually attack him. He says fish, and it's fine. I like it. And then you have to fight the penguin enemies. The penguins are just kind of lame. They have rockets on them, and they fly, and it's stupid. But I like it how he brings up, nobody didn't like Wrath of Cortex. I'm did this game just make fun of Wrath of Cortex? I don't know. I just like it how the game makes fun of Wrath of Cortex, it makes fun of itself. And then I was did this game just make fun of Wrath of Cortex? It's I like how this game, makes fun of itself. It can make fun of itself. I like how this game can, make fun of itself, I kind of like that. I appreciate that. And then you have to fight the penguin enemies, and then you stop the penguin enemies fight, beat them. And let me just tell you something, like, the penguin enemies just have rockets on them, and the rockets, like, have, like, rockets on their back, and they fly and hit, they fly and go up, and as they go up, they just kind of hit, like, hit and kill themselves. It's weird. Like, so the penguin enemies are just kind of useless when you think about it. But the ice level, it's kind of not much. It's a good boss battle, and I like it. And let me just tell you something, like, now, back to the ice level. I mean, the game's all over the place. It has, like, a cool boss battle. I really like and appreciate it. Like so many good references in the game I like. It makes so many references to other games, and what I would like to say is that it's cool world building. Kind of what I like to say. That's kind of what I kind of like about it, really. And then you fight Engine, and Engine's an easy boss to go to Engine's lair. Then you later go to Engine's lair. You go to Engine's lair, and then you fight Engine, the most easiest boss fight ever. You have to, like, he's, like, shooting cannons, and then he hits himself on this. I mean, this is, like, probably the most easiest Engine boss fight I ever played in my life. It's really easy. After you beat Engine, Engine after he hits himself, literally after he effing hits himself with his mechanics and cannon, and he's shooting like a cannon, and then he hits himself. It's easy. So basically, in the Engine boss fight, you have to go around, he hits him, shoot cannons, and then he hits him. So basically, in the Engine boss fight, you have to go around after he shoots multiple cannons, and then you actually have to diverge to make sure that he hits himself, and that's what happens. He hits himself, and he falls apart, and him and his machine fall apart, and you go around. So you go around, and you divert. Then you have to diverge, and then his machine and himself falls down. Crash and Aku gets chased by a walrus. Yes, a walrus chef, and it's like a pretty cool. So they get chased by this walrus chef. Yes, that's right. There's a walrus chef chasing you. A walrus chef chasing. Oh my god, the walrus chef chasing you. It's actually a pretty nice little fun boss fight, and after you actually kind of beat the walrus chef chase boss fight, wherever I'm dealing with, it actually was pretty fun and entertaining and felt like the old Crash games. And after that, it was actually kind of fun and actually felt kind of entertaining and felt like the old Crash games. That aside, now, I mean, like, the Walrus Chef boss battle was interesting, and the Walrus Chef boss battle chase was kind of fun. And then later, after you beat him, you then confront these two other bosses. And then Crash and Aku later confront N-Trophy and Dr. Brio, finally. Wow, all this time. So then you actually have to fight. They have to fight N-Trophy and Dr. Brio. Dr. Brio turns himself into a frog, and he hops around, while at the same time, like, you have to fight, like, N-Trophy, and you actually have to hit him 3 times. It's actually easy as a shield. It's actually a really easy boss fight, and it's fun. So you get chased by this walrus, and I gotta say, the walrus boss chase chef battle is actually kind of fun and interesting. I mean, like, the walrus chef chase boss battle is actually kind of fun and interesting. It's fun. It's kind of entertaining, fun, enjoyable. That's all I gotta say about that. And then you later confront Crash and Aku. Then later you confront. And then Crash and Aku confronts N-Trophy and Brio. They confront N-Trophy and Brio. That's right. And that's right. They finally confront N-Trophy and Brio. That's interesting. Dr. Brio. Dr. Brio then turns into a frog. Dr. Brio then turns himself into, like, literally a frog. Okay, then turns himself into a frog. So literally a frog. And then he actually beat his Dr. Brio's frog form, and they have to fight N-Trophy. There's frog trophy, and then N-Trophy is easy. You have to hit him 3 times as a shield, but you have to fight him and shield him. So what he does is he cracks the iceberg, landing on this iceberg, by the way. And N-Trophy, I mean, Dr. Brio's easy. You have to, like, he hops around, like, literally, like, and it's fun. I'm sorry. Like, it's just, like, he hops around. So he, like, hops around, and then you beat him. It's kind of easy to beat him. And so what he does is that he hops around and cracks the icebergs, and it's kind of easy to beat him. And then you beat him, and then after you beat him, N-Trophy comes. He uses a shield and fights. You have to fight a spear. You have to fight him. You have to hit him 3 times. And after him 3 times, you kind of beat him. Like, so what he does, he cracks the iceberg. Right? Well, remember you land on an iceberg and he cracks the icebergs, and then he cracks the icebergs, and then you actually fight N-Trophy, and then you have to fight him, and after you finally beat him, and then you fight, and after Brio, like, hops like a literal frog and beat him. And after you fight Brio, and after he hops like a literal frog, after Dr. Brio hops like a literal frog, after you beat Engine and Trophy, and finally, so then you defeat, destroyed him. Dr. Brio then hops like a literal frog. After you defeated and destroyed Dr. Brio and N-Trophy, you then go to this level. Then we go up to this level. So then we cut to one of the most interesting boss battles in the game. So then Crash and Cortex go in this ice cave, break in this ice cave, and then they, by coincidence, stumble upon Uka Uka, and even Cortex freaks out about this. And Uka Uka, like, kind of has his little revenge forms a little ice body. He has like this little ice cube body at the fight. And what I have to say about this boss fight is interesting. Then you actually have to like move his Crash, and so then you actually have to like beat him after he like shoots ice cubes and ice spikes at you. You actually have to like make sure he gets hit by the fire and shoot fire at him. Then that's kind of how you beat him. It's actually a really easy boss battle. It's a little bit challenging, but that's about it. And then there's a little story where like Aku approaches him and says that we have to work together. So it's interesting that there's like a little story character development where the two Tiki God brothers work together. So I'll give it credit for that. So even though this boss battle has like a little interesting story, it's actually kind of an easy and simple boss battle, really. So this boss battle is kind of simple and easy. You have to actually jump on this button and beat him. You actually have to make sure he's on the fire steam. You have to shoot the fire at. You have to make sure he's on the fire steam and shoot the fire at him. So what he does is he actually shoots ice spikes at you. He shoots ice spikes. So what he does is little ice spikes at you. So you have to make sure you don't get hit by his ice cubes and go over that. And you have to jump on this button to shoot fire at the fire steam. You have to pull Cortex to move the switch, and so you actually have to throw Cortex to make sure he pulls the switch to open the button. And you have to jump on the button to shoot to make sure he's on the steam fire. And you have to make sure you have to shoot fire at him. And that's kind of how this boss battle works. It's actually it's kind of a challenging, interesting, fun boss battle. It's kind of interesting, really. It's kind of entertaining, really. And then his ice body melts. And then after his ice body melts, and after you defeat and destroyed him, and then Uka was gonna like run away and leave, but then Aku approaches him and says like, we gotta team up. And as brothers they agree. So it's interesting to see a little story here where like, so then Aku approaches Uka after he was about to leave and escape. Aku convinces him that they both have to work together to fight evil. And Uka agrees, decides to work together as brothers. So I'm not gonna lie, this is actually a pretty good boss battle, the Uka one. Uka boss battle is actually a pretty good boss battle. And then Crash and Cortex. And then, Crash and Cortex working together, it's pretty decent. Gameplay dynamic there, and I do like the gameplay. I do like the fighting gameplay, it's pretty nice and good. So then we move on to the next part of the game. So then you go to this, like, sewer level. So the sewer level is interesting. Like, Cortex is actually accidentally hit in a bowl. Like, he's in this, like, I don't know what it is. Like, he's in this jar containment, and half the time of this level, you have to roll him around to get through the sewer, and it's pretty interesting fun. And then he eventually, gets out of the jar and sewer level, and there's a lot of comedy after that. And it's interesting. So then you go to the sewer level. In the sewer level, you're in the sewer, like, Cortex gets trapped in, like, a container, a jar. He gets trapped in a jar, he's in this canned jar, and you have to move his jar or something. It's trapped. And there's comedy throughout the whole thing. He eventually gets out of the can, but still, it's just funny throughout the whole way. You have to roll him around, and you have to go through the sewer levels. He eventually gets out of the can jar, but it's just funny either way. It's just comedic throughout the whole level, moving throughout the whole sewer level. It's just funny throughout the whole way. It's funny throughout the whole level. So then later, Crash and then Cortex then meet up Dingodile, and then they both confront Dingodile as a boss battle. So Dingodile is all of a sudden a boss battle in this level. And I'm not gonna lie, it's been a while Dingodile has true traditional boss battle, and that's kind of cool. So it's actually finally cool to see Dingodile as a boss battle. And then, Cortex then, gets some laughs. Gets comedically slapsticked around. And then Crash and Cortex then fight Dingodile. In the Dingodile boss fight, all you do is just go around him and diverge and hit him, and it's actually a pretty cool, nice boss battle, really. This is actually a pretty cool boss battle. After actually Dingodile shoots his fireballs and then shoots his fire flames at you, you have to go around, make sure he hits that button, and then you actually have to, like, jump in and hit a button so the water can hit him and kind of punch him, and that's kind of how you fight the boss battle. Then after you defeat and destroy him, and this is actually a pretty fun boss battle. This is actually one of my favorite boss battles in the game. And so then later, Crash and Cortex then approaches Dingodile. Then they confront Dingodile, and then Dingodile is all of a sudden a boss battle. So then Dingodile is all of a sudden a boss battle, and then Cortex gets some laughs. He's like gets slapstick treat. Then Cortex gets like slapstick treated or something. Then there's some goofy scenes with Cortex. Then Cortex gets like comedically slapstick, you can kind of say. And then Crash and Cortex fight, and then Crash fights Dingodile, and it's actually pretty cool to see Dingodile as a boss battle. I mean, it's actually cool to see Dingodile as a boss battle, and it's been a while. to see Dingodile as a boss battle. And it's been a while to see Dingodile as a boss battle. To see Dingodile as a traditional boss battle. To see Dingodile as a traditional boss battle. To see Dingodile as a boss. So, and then Crash and Cortex fight him. So, what we have to do in this boss... So what you have to do in this boss fight is that you actually shoot... Dingodile shoots his fireballs at you, then he shoots his flamethrower at you, and then you have to diverge and go around him and make sure you hit the button, and then you hit the button, and then so water sparks and fly, and then you can kind of hit him to weaken him. So what he does is he shoots his fireballs at you, and then he shoots flamethrower in his device. So what he does is that what Dingodile does is that he shoots his fireballs at you, then he shoots his flamethrower, then he shoots his flamethrower at you. So you have to divulge and divert him and distract and go around him. Then he shoots, and then you gotta make sure you have to shoot this button, and then you have to click the button, and then water showers hit him, and then he's weakened by the water. Then he's weakened by the water showers. He's weakened by the water, and then you hit him, and that's how you hit Dingodile. Then you fight, and that's actually how you hit Dingodile. Then you later punch. And that's how you fight Dingodile, and that's how you hit Dingodile, and that's how you target Dingodile, So after you defeat and destroy him, Crash and Cortex go to the next level. So after you defeat and destroy it, then you defeat and destroy it, and then you defeated and destroyed him, and then after you defeat and destroyed Dingodile, and after you defeat and destroyed Dingodile, Crash and Cortex then go to the next level. Crash and Cortex then go to the next level. So, and I gotta say, this boss battle is my favorite. This is actually a pretty cool, fun boss battle. It's easy and challenging. I really like it. For a boss battle, this is pretty good. It's actually one of my favorite boss battles of the game. It's really fun. It's very simple. It's enlightening. I like it. I enjoy it. It's one of my favorite boss battles. And it's actually, it's easy. It's really fun. It's easy. It's challenging, but mostly it's enlightening and fun. It's mostly fun. It's mostly a good, fun boss battle. I really enjoyed it. It's a fine boss battle. It's one of my favorite It's actually one of my favorite boss battles, and I really enjoyed it. It's good. It's hard and good enough, and it's actually hard and good enough. It's actually challenging enough in a good way. Good enough. It's fun. It's a fun boss battle, and that's actually why. And it's actually one of my favorite boss battles, and I really like it. So that's kind of my thoughts on the Dingodile boss fight, and that's actually my thoughts on the Dingodile boss fight. I will go on. This is my favorite boss. The Dingodile's boss fight's really fun. It's one of the fun parts of the game, and the Dingodile boss fight's really fun and easy. It's fun, and it's entertaining. It's pretty good. It's fun. It's entertaining. It's a pretty nice boss fight. And that's my thoughts on the Dingodile boss fight, and that's why I like the Dingodile boss. So there's a level where you actually play as Cortex, and you actually have to, jump on these rooftops, you're in the academy, and you have to, fight the enemies in the school, and it's actually a pretty fun, decent level. You actually play as, the villains, and it's actually pretty cool and nice. So it's actually pretty cool to play as Cortex, and she gets to climb. Pretty cool to get to climb in the school. You just jump on the rooftops, fight enemies on your way, and get the cling, your hand, you shoot your hands out, the cling, and it's pretty cool to get to jump on top of rooftops. You jump on top of buildings, and you jump on top of rooftops to fight the enemies, and you jump on top of buildings, and you fight the enemies through the academy and school. Pretty cool to fight through in the academy. She spins, she shoots her cling out, and pretty cool to have her spinning attacks are pretty unique. It's pretty cool to have her hands spread out, stretches like this. It's pretty cool, interesting moves, gotta say. And one time you have to play as Cortex, and you get to shoot his ray gun. It's actually cool to get to use his ray gun to shoot enemies, and fight his way through the academy. It's pretty nice and cool. I kind of like it. And then you play as Cortex, and playing Cortex for the first time is actually pretty cool. I like how you get to use his ray gun, shoot a ray gun, and fight the academy and school. I just love this. I'm sorry. I just love this where he gets to use his ray gun. He's shooting his way through the school and the academy, fight through enemies. He's using his ray gun, his laser gun for the first time. It's pretty cool to use his laser ray gun, I'm not gonna lie. It's pretty cool to have to shoot your enemies way through the school. And it's pretty cool the first time you use Cortex. It's pretty funny. So you have to shoot your way through the school and academy. And it's really cool and fun to play as Cortex. It's kind of goofy, but it's cool as Cortex is a playable character. So you shoot your way through the academy, which that's what you do in the Cortex level. You have to play as Cortex, which is pretty goofy and funny, which I'm not gonna lie. And he's a pretty awesome character. He's a pretty cool character to play. It's pretty fun to play with the first time, and he's a pretty unique character to play. Cool character design. I like how that you get to I don't know, he has like cool moves. You get to play as him. You get to move as Cortex, which is pretty nice and fun. He's pretty unique to play. He's pretty interesting to play. You get to use his Uka Uka, and Uka Uka follows you. And I don't know, it's just a really cool, nice... So that's all I gotta say, and I don't know, it's just a really cool, nice level where Uka Uka follows you. He's just an interesting, unique character to play. He's really interesting and unique. And it's pretty cool that Uka Uka follows you. And so Uka Uka follows you in this game. Follows you when you play as Cortex. Like how like the way Uka Uka follows Cortex. And it's just like how Aku follows Crash. So that's my thoughts on playing as Cortex, and that's all I have to say. Bye. So Cortex goes on an adventure to get Nina Cortex's daughter, and this first we're introduced to Cortex's daughter, and they go to her school university to pick her up and find her. But then all of a sudden, Cortex stumbles upon her old professor, Madame Amber, who is now stringed to ropes, and it's kind of creepy. And Madame Amberly taunts Cortex. So then we have another boss fight. So she, zaps lightning at you, and you're at this piano orchestra, and you have to shoot down the orchestra's fire, and then you have to shoot her, and then you weaken her, and then you have to hit her back. You have to hit her bolts, her lightning bolts, her like these objects. You have to shoot, and then you have to shoot her back that holds her ropes, and then she falls down and dies after you defeat. This is an okay boss. It's not my favorite. It's a creepy boss. It's a creative one. It's original. I'll give it that. And then you go and rescue Nina Cortex, and then you pick up Nina Cortex. So Crash and Cortex then go on to pick up Nina Cortex. They then go on a trip to find Nina Cortex, to pick her up and find her. They then go to her school. They then go to her school university. And this is also delves into Cortex past and how he found the evils and how they were created. And then we were also introduced to Nina Cortex's daughter for the first time. And we then go to her school university to find her for help. And this also delves into Cortex past and how he created the evil twin birds. And this is actually also the first time we were introduced to Cortex's daughter, Nina Cortex. And then this is the first time we were introduced to Cortex's daughter, Nina Cortex. So then Cortex stumbled upon her past professor, Madame Amberly, and then Cortex freaks out and actually then confronts his past professor, Madame Amberly, and I think he's principal or something, the school principal. And Madame Amberly taunts him. And then he confronts his school principal, Madame Amberly. And then Madame Amberly taunts Cortex. And then he fights him. And then we have a boss battle fight. So she shoots his lightning, so she shoots her lightning at him, and then you have to shoot his lightning bolts and objects, and then you have to shoot. She's tied to these ropes. It's really weird. It's actually a creepy boss fight, a creepy character overall. She's tied to these ropes. She's old and almost dying, and then she's tied to these rooms, and then she is on this piano. She's on this piano orchestra, and he shoots and she controls this piano. She controls this orchestra, and to shoot fire, you have to shoot his objects. He shoots this fire from below. You have to shoot back the fire from below the orchestra, and then you actually have to shoot her lightning bolts back. You have to shoot her objects back at her, and that's about it. And then he actually defeated and destroyed Madame Amberly. Then she falls off her ropes. Her tied rope. And then she falls up her tied ropes, and then she falls down and dies, I hope. She's a really creepy and disturbing boss battle, and this is her path. How he created the evil but then delve into Cortex's past, and then we delve into Cortex's past of how he created the evil twins birds. And how the evil twin birds escape became their own evil thing or whatever. And then she dies. And she's a really disturbing character. She's a really creepy boss fight. Really disturbing, creepy boss fight. She's a really disturbing character. She's a really creepy boss. She's a really creepy character. I gotta tell you that. I gotta say that. So then after you defeat and destroyed her, then go into the next chapter of the game. So then after you then you defeat and destroyed her, then you go on the next chapter. Then you defeat and destroyed, and then you defeat and destroyed her, and then go to the next chapter of the game. So then after you defeat and destroyed her, you then go to the next chapter of the game. And then after you defeat and destroy her, you then go to the next chapter of the game. Now, I gotta say, this boss fight is pretty good. It's not my favorite. It's a pretty good and interesting boss fight battle. This is actually a pretty interesting boss fight. It is challenging. It's interesting and fun, but this chapter, and that was it. And chapter, and that was all I have to say. And so, really, the game. Okay, so this is actually, now this is not really my favorite boss fight. This is not my favorite boss fight. This is not my favorite boss fight, but it's an interesting, fun boss fight. Now, this is not my favorite boss fight. This is not my favorite boss fight. This is not my favorite. This is not my favorite boss fight. It's really an interesting and challenging boss fight. It's hard, not hard enough. It's not my favorite, but it's good. I find it to be good enough, but it's really not my favorite. And I find it to be good enough, and it's not my favorite. Now, this is not really my favorite boss fight, but I find it to be good. I find it to be good enough, and it's interesting, hard enough. It's fine. It's fun. It's okay. It's a good boss fight. I find it to be challenging enough. I find it to be hard enough, but it's okay. It's easy. It's fine. It's an okay boss fight. It's not that difficult. It's easy and fun and fine. It's not that difficult. It's easy, fun and fine. It's decent. Okay. It's decent. Okay. It's terrible. It's terrible. Watchable. It's okay. Decent. It's decent. Fun. It's okay. It's okay and decent. It's a good boss fight. That's all I gotta say. So then they move on and go to the next chapters of the game. So then they go and move on, go to the next chapters of the game, and yada yada yada. So then Nita Cortex is actually an interesting character. She has interesting levels, and then she climbs, and next chapter of the, and then they go to the next chapter of the game. Then they go to the next. So then they go to the next chapter of the game. So then the next part of the game. So Nita Cortex levels are pretty interesting. The Nita Cortex levels are actually kind of fun. You actually have to do Nita. You have to move. Then there's times you actually have to move Nita Cortex. Like she climbs on these buildings. She hops on top of these buildings, and she has interesting fun. She has really fun and interesting moves. There's a level where I have to climb on these buildings, jump over those buildings. I have to walk over those buildings, and there's a level where you actually have to jump over those buildings and all that stuff. And she has interesting fun moves, and she has really some interesting fun moves. I gotta say, that's it, and that's all I gotta say. The music is very interesting and cool in this game. The music was done by Spiralmouth, who does other video games, who does music for other bands and other video games, and they literally did the toots with their own lips. They literally sing in this game for the soundtrack of the game, and that is awesome. And that is really cool and awesome. Like, just take a listen to it. So now just listen to it. Now when you listen to it, it's really cool and sweet. And they literally sing for the soundtrack for this game. That's really cool that Spiralmouth did that. And, I just have so much nostalgia for this music. Just listen to it. So it's really cool that Spiralmouth did the music up for this game, and I'll go on and on. Now, what's really cool about this game is, here is the music. The music is really cool here. It's fascinating. The music was done by Spiralmouth. Now, Spiralmouth did, other, did other bands and did the music for other video games, played other bands. But what's really cool is the Spiralmouth, basically did the soundtrack for this game with her own lips and toots. And they literally sing for the soundtrack for this game. And that's really cool and awesome. Now, the music is really awesome in this game. I have so much fun in it. Just listen to it. Now, they did other video games and and they did other video games. And they did the soundtrack for other video games, and they did the soundtrack for other video games, and they played other bands. But what's really cool here is they do their own toots with their own, singing their own mouths and lips. They do their own toots and sing their own mouths and lips, and that's really cool. They sing for the soundtrack for this game. Just listen to it. I have nostalgia for it. I don't know. It's just really cool and awesome. I really like this game. It's really cool that Spiralmouth would do that. So that was Spiralmouth. Spiralmouth is really cool. Spiralmouth is just awesome. I gotta tell you that. And I really like it how Spiralmouth did the soundtrack for this game. So that's cool, and that's one cool thing I'm going to say about this game. So it's really cool that Spiralmouth would do the music for the game. So that's my thoughts on the music of the game. And this is the funniest Crash game ever. There's a lot of funny moments. Just watch.
Hey! Yeah, you! I've been doing this for 10 stinking years. Back and forward, and I'm sick of it! Well, I'm not gonna do it no more!
Keep back, you weak-minded fool! Avert your gaze or you'll go crystal crazy! Living in harmony with Mother Nature, the noble boar, the humble bumblebee.
Ah! Ah!
check bounced. Are you sure? Well, the past few years have kind of been slow. Wrath of Cortex didn't do as well as we'd hoped, and... Fish? I'm stuck! The greatest evil scientist in the world! Stuck in a pipe. How could things get any worse?
So that was oh my god, that was fun. Oh my god, that was so good. Oh, it's funny. Oh, that cracks me up. And I like how in one level we have to, like, Cortex, you know, he gets chased by Evil Crash, and the same thing as the Beat. Same thing happens in the Evil Crash level, where Evil Crash chases Cortex. It's the same thing where, like earlier, like, you have to, like, prevent Cortex by getting hit by traps. You have to prevent Cortex by getting hit by obstacles and save him, and you gotta protect him. So we gotta save and protect him, and that's what happens. Same thing where you have to save and protect him. It's really nice and cool. So make sure he's okay. So there's one level where Crash has to save Nina from Evil Crash, and Crash rides Cortex. And then all of a sudden, and then in that level, and there's one level where Crash rides on Nina. Crash rides on Cortex, which is funny and cool, so he can save Nina, which is from Evil Crash. That's interesting and funny, though. Then Crash and Cortex go to the Ant level. And I gotta say, the final Ant level is the toughest level. Oh my god, it's so tough. So then Crash and Cortex then bump into Dr. Engine, Dr. Brio, Entropy, you name it. And Entropy, Dr. Brio, and Engine want their vengeance against Cortex. Entropy, Engine, Brio, they also want the power and treasure. But then all of a sudden, Spyro the Dragon shows up. Yeah, and then Spyro the Dragon shows up for no reason. And then he fire breathes, and then he shoots fire at, like, Entropy, Engine, Brio, you name it, and that's kind of what happened, and then they're defeated. And then, and I seriously, I just like how Spyro the Dragon just shows up out of nowhere, like, literally. I like how Spyro the Dragon just shows up out of nowhere, like, he makes, like, this random cameo out of nowhere. It's funny, I don't know, it's amazing. I don't know, just a little funny thing I like. And also, then Crash Cortex is at the final Ant level. And then, when Crash and Cortex, when we're at the final Ant level, it's the toughest level I ever played in my life. It's so challenging. Toughest level I ever played in my life. The obstacles are challenging. Jumping on the right spot's challenging. I will go on. It's really tough. So hard. Oh my god. I'm sorry, but, like, it's so tough. And it's just it's so annoying. It's so frustrating. I'll go on. So that's my thoughts on it. So then that is the story of the game. But then later in the story of the game, Crash and Cortex do eventually go to their universe and go to their dimension. And when they go to their dimension, Crash and Cortex stumble upon Evil Crash. And it's funny where Evil Crash chases Cortex, and after Cortex runs away from Evil Crash, and Evil Crash just goes away and goes somewhere else. And then you get to the final levels of the game, where it's the toughest part of the game, where you get to the fight ants, and you have to fight their ant army, and then Crash and Cortex, and then confronts the Evil Twin Birds boss battle, and the Evil Twins boss battle is a tough boss battle, but it is kind of easy, and like it is tough in a few parts, but mostly this boss battle is mostly easy. And after they're defeated and destroyed, and the evil runs away, and after the go out hiding, they stumble upon Evil Crash, and I think they're at Evil Crash's home, and the Evil Twin Birds basically get eaten alive by Evil Crash, and they basically died and are dead, and they died and are dead after they were eaten alive, and after they were eaten alive by Evil Crash. And that is the story of the game. And oh wait, there's more. And then Cortex wants to have his revenge on Crash, and Cortex to have his revenge on Crash, and is about to do evil things with him. And Cortex plans to zap Crash to death, but then his laser machine malfunctions and zaps Cortex, and the laser machine malfunctions and zaps Cortex instead. And then you see Cortex in Crash's brain, and like you literally see Cortex in Crash's brain, and he sees little crashes. Little crashes are dancing, and Cortex is losing his mind, and is just losing it, and going crazy uncontrollably. And yes, there's more. And then it cuts to a post-credits scene where you see Crash and Cortex in a therapy session, and in the therapy session, Crash and Cortex talks about their feelings and problems and why they don't get along and why they hate each other. And then you see Crash eats this Wampa fruit, and you see Crash eats his Wampa fruit, and Cortex accidentally gets hit. Cortex falls to the ground, and Crash just eats his Wampa fruit, and then he just enjoys his Wampa fruit after that. Then the game ends, and that scene is more just played for laughs, and it's just funny, and yes, it's for laughs, but I found that scene to be funny, and that was the story of the game. And the story is interesting, and that the story is interesting and fun, and it is entertaining and enjoyable. And then the game ends, and that was the ending of the game. So guys, that was Crash Twinsanity. And Crash Twinsanity is a good game, and this game is always fun to play. So Crash Twinsanity is a very good PS2 game. It's one of my favorite PS2 games. And I think Crash Twinsanity is one of the best Crash PS2 games out there. And I think Crash Twinsanity is a good game, and it's a fun game to play. And this is a good PS2 game. And this is a good PS2 game. And this is one of the more good Crash PS2 games. And guys, I give Crash Twinsanity a 7 out of 10. And wait, actually no, I changed my mind. Guys, I give Crash Twinsanity a 8 out of 10. A 7 out of 10. I give Crash Twinsanity a 7 out of 10. Wait, no, I actually changed my mind. I give Crash Twinsanity a 8 out of 10. So guys, I do recommend this game. Crash Twinsanity is great as a PS2 game. And as a PS2 game, it's great. And Crash Twinsanity is great as a PS2 game. And so guys, I do recommend this game. And this game is very fun and cool to play. And I do consider getting this game in your collection. And if you're a hardcore Crash fan, or just a casual Crash fan, to own it and just casual play it. It's one of the best Crash games to play it. And it's a very enjoyable Crash game to play. And I do consider getting this game. And if you're a hardcore Crash fan, to own this game, or just a casual Crash fan to play it and try it out and see for yourself, to have fun with this game and see how cool it is. And it's one of the best Crash games to play, and it's an enjoyable Crash game to play. So guys, I'm Critic, and I'm out. And I'll see you guys later, and I'll see you guys in the next video, and I'll see you guys around, and peace out, and bye.